How's it going, everyone? So pretty good news. About 2 days ago, I got into one of the medical schools in my state, which for anyone applying, they know that's a really big deal. The ability to stay in state if you can is a huge deciding factor in which school you're going to go to. So I'm still waiting to hear back from two state schools before I can make a decision. But until this point, with the acceptances I had, I kind of knew which one I would choose. And then I got this one. And even though it's in state, it's actually kind of hard to choose between the one I was already kind of going to go to and then this one. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video where I kind of compare the two really quick, kind of hear your guys' thoughts, hear from you on what you guys prioritize when you're going to choose between schools and what you're looking for in the school that you go to. Again, I'm still going to wait to hear back from the other two in my state before I make a decision on which school I'm going to go to. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of, talk through some of the kind of thinking that I have to go through right now. So let me know in the comments what you guys think between like these options and kind of like what I tell you guys about them, and also what you guys are going to prioritize when you guys apply one day. At this time, I'm still not going to disclose the schools I got into just because I think it's a little bit, kind of weird to talk about the schools I haven't actually chosen to go to yet. I'm just going to refer to them as like my in-state school, my out-of-state school, and then, I'll make a video hopefully once I hear back from the other schools about which one I actually end up going to. Hopefully it's soon, knock on wood. Okay, so first I'm gonna start with my in-state school. A lot of people, for them, it's the obvious choice to stay in state. But here's the thing. So in terms of both schools, there's actually things that aren't really deciding factors. One of them being the tuition. The tuition is actually the same from the out-of-state school versus the in-state school, and it's because they're both DO schools and they're both private schools. So the tuition is the same whether you're in-state or out-of-state, and it's pretty much the same. Maybe like a couple $1,000s difference, but really not a lot. And so that's not something I'm using to decide, but what could be the same or what could be different is the social aspect and the support aspect, because here I have my family, right? My family lives in this city, and so if they if I stay with them, I could commute to school and I wouldn't have to have an apartment that has to be that has rent every single month. But the school here is about 40 minutes drive from my parents' house, and that's not super practical if you have to do that twice a day. Depending on how many days I go to school a week, I don't really actually know how much I'm going to have to go to lecture. It kind of depends on how much I think I need to sit in a lecture room to study, or even if I have to come for, like different like clinical things. It's going to be a long drive every day if I have to do that. And so I would, if I stayed here, I'd probably want to get an apartment very close to the campus. That way I could just walk or do a really short drive. But then if I do that, then there's kind of no difference in getting an apartment on the out-of-state one, because I would be doing both there as well. So I don't think I'm going to live with my parents for the in-state school. I would have to do, kind of figure out maybe during my first year how much I think I need to be on campus, and then maybe get an apartment for the first year. If I end up deciding I'm not going to campus a lot and I'm actually at home studying most days of the week, then maybe I can justify maybe second year or second semester, just living with my parents. But if I end up wanting to be really, really close to campus, then for both schools, it's actually the same. The cost of living is actually pretty much the same in both areas. And so that's another thing I can't really do to decide. So in terms of like the design of both schools, I actually really like the out-of-state one. The reason being is about 2 or 3 years ago, they built that school. And so it's super new looking, super modern looking, versus the one that's here in Vegas is kind of more like, you can tell it's a little bit older. It's maybe like, I don't know, like 20 years old, but you can tell. And so I really liked how modern the out of state school was. It was just brighter, the colors were better, the design of the facility was better, I thought. Really just aesthetically pleasing school, really relaxing, and the environment around it is very outdoorsy. It's really quiet in the surrounding area. It's just a bunch of residential areas. The nearest like city where people kind of drive in to do like their grocery shopping and stuff is about 20 minutes away. And so I would basically be in a very peaceful area, versus if I went to my in-state school, it's here in Las Vegas. It's very it's kind of like still a city vibe because it's Vegas, and the school is surrounded by a lot of other buildings, a lot of other roads, cars, a lot of other things in the area. And so I don't think it would actually be as relaxing if I stayed by the school versus if I went to the out-of-state one. And that's kind of a huge one. If it's like if I have to study all the time, I kind of want to be in a very peaceful area. And that was something I didn't really think about until I went and interviewed at the out-of-state school. And I was like, this is so peaceful. Like I could literally study outside and it would just be super quiet and you would just hear nature. And I thought that was really awesome. But then, if I stay here, there's I know the area better. Like I've lived in Vegas my whole life. I know where things are. I wouldn't have to go find new places to do my grocery shopping. I would kind of know where everything is. My parents would be 40 minutes away, so it'd be super easy to get things done if I needed, last minute things happening. So even though I prefer the design of the out of state school, the one in state, I can kind of just, not have to adapt to the new city and the new environment because I already know it and I'm already used to it. And that kind of just makes it a lot easier. Now, besides that, they pretty much both have about the same amount of students on campus, but one huge difference, and it's actually a huge deciding factor, is that they have different grading systems. The in-state school does a graded system, so they still have their A's, their B's, their C's, whatever. The out-of-state one only does pass fail. Starting next year, the year that I start, they would be doing pass fail, and that's a huge deal because I think that doing grading systems, I think, is so much more stressful. Like if you think I have to get this grade on the exam versus I have to pass this exam, it's so much more stressful. At the schools that I've interviewed at that had pass fail, all their students were saying that like the competitive nature just kind of goes away once you and your peers only have to pass, because you're not really comparing letters, you're not comparing like percentages. It's just you passed or you didn't. And I thought that was awesome. I didn't really think about how stressful getting a letter grade or a percentage grade was up until I heard about that. And so that's a pretty big deal. And so I personally really prefer pass fail. And one of the other two schools I'm waiting to hear back from that are in state are also pass fail, which is, again, why I can't really make my final decision yet. It's going to be a huge factor in determining which one I'm going to go to between these two schools. Now, I have pulled up the complex scores for both of these schools. So if you go to any DO school, you're going to have to take complex level 1, 2, and 3. But, a lot of schools, a lot of DO schools, their students will take step 1, step 2 anyway, because you're going to have to compete for the same residencies that as MDs. You want to compete for, harder to get into residencies. So you're going to have to kind of take step anyway. But I'm kind of just going to use their complex scores as kind of an indication of how they just perform. And then, I'll assume that they kind of translates over to step a little bit. So my in-state school has a complex level 1 score of 2018 average was a 510, which is under national average. And the out-of-state one is a 551. 551, am I reading that right? 510 versus 551. Okay, so the out-of-state school has a 551 average on step 1, and the in-state one has a 510 average on complex step 1. That's a huge difference. The out-of-state one is above the national average compared to the one in my city. And if you're whatever medical school you go to, you want to feel confident that whatever curriculum they have is going to prepare you for, your boards so that you can place into the residencies you want. Because, both of these schools, they pretty much have the same curriculum in terms of the classes. You do your anatomy, physiology, you do these same systems pretty much all the way through the first 2 years, just pretty much, it's pretty much the same. But they're scoring out of state way more on complex, which I imagine means that they're also scoring better on their step exam scores. I couldn't find the actual step scores that they had because they're only required to take complex. So that's all they're posting, but that's a huge difference. And so if I want to go to the out of state one, I feel like I would feel better going into my boards, knowing that I followed their curriculum and kind of what they said I need to do to prepare. That's a pretty big deal. I did not look at that until making this video. So that's huge. That's a super big deal. In terms of residency placements, they're placing a lot of the same things. I'm kind of partial to possibly oncology, and so they're doing internal medicine at the out of state. I think they're getting internal medicine in state, yeah. Okay, and then emergency medicine, same kind of surgeries they're booking, orthopedic, and okay, so pretty much the same, placements. I don't know if the competitiveness of the programs, but I imagine that the out-of-state school who's getting better step exams or complex exams and board pass rates, probably going to be better residency placements, and that's a huge deal. Actually, I'm really glad I looked at that just now. And if you're going to choose between schools, please look at those board exam scores. Man, that's such a big deal. Wow. Okay, I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm just kind of going to do a really brief summary of some of the things I've been thinking about between these two schools. So, in-state pros and cons. Pro is being super close to family, don't really have to adapt to a new area or know the area. Going to be super good, like social support between, friends and family. I met a lot of students from the school. I would get to rotate here in Las Vegas, which I think is where I want to practice medicine. Um, Cons being, if you don't try new places, live in new places, are you really giving yourself a huge chance to grow? Like I say I want to practice in Las Vegas, but maybe I don't one day, and I only am going to know that if I, go out of state and rotate in other places and try living in a different place. Um, I didn't like the school, like the look as much. Like it looks fine, it looks great, but I didn't, compared to the other one, I didn't like it as much. They do, graded system versus pass fail, which I like. Um, and then they score lower on their board exams. The out of state school, pros and cons, pros being they have a pass fail system, they're scoring better on boards, higher pass rate on boards. Um, I really like the school, just the look of the school, super modern, super techy. It's only a 2 hour drive. It's a 2 hour drive from where I am. So even though it's out of state, it's really not that far. It's a super easy, just wake up and go kind of trip. If I wanted to come home and visit family and friends. Cons, again, being away from family. What if I am going to be rotating in, out of state versus rotating here in Vegas, which is where I think I want to practice one day, and because I really liked growing up here in Vegas, and I feel like this is where all my family and friends are, so I want to practice one day here. I would have to adapt to the new area, so I'd have to get used to just living there. Where am I going to do all my grocery shopping? Where am I going to do all these things? I would have to move my stuff up there, versus here I would just be moving it somewhere over there, where however far away it is. And so that's pretty much all I got. Like, if you're watching this, comment below, like, what is important to you? What do you prioritize when you're choosing between medical schools? What is important to you in terms of the medical school that you go to? And between my two options, like, what would you be leaning towards if you were in my position? Like, I definitely want to know. And also, like, if I missed any, like, important things that you think is important to decide between what school you would go to, like, let me know so I can kind of address those things as well. Because I'm just kind of looking at things that I thought were important, but maybe there's other things that I'm not taking into consideration as well. But anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.